Now, Bangladesh issue has pushed India into 3.5 front war. You, as an investor and wanted to understand the geopolitics, you need to go beyond the media coverage. I mean, many European country is not of that size of Bangladesh. So US just asked for any of these islands can be given to them so that they can set up a naval base here. This is the most vulnerable zone in our country. Because 5 different countries have a very close presence work here in Cox's Bazar zone. ONGC is working in this zone for natural gas. So if this got disconnected, think about it. China will first attack here.
The first question is, can you provide a brief overview of the current political situation in Bangladesh and what led it this situation? I know everybody knows, but if you can,
Yeah. So everybody knows. So I am not going into those details again. What I would like to mention that how I have connected the dots and through which how I have framed a picture and understood the situation by my own from my analytical ability. So I am not seeing this just for a 2 months episode. It is not like that. You all know that Bangladesh had a general election in January 2024. During the general election, majority of the electoral seats, the ruling party, that is Awami League, has actually won uncontested. So if a party continuously winning uncontested, there can be two reading into that. One is that probably there is no opposition. And the second one is that there are opposition, but the opposition is heavily oppressed so that they cannot take part in the electoral process. And number three, that there is a lot of fear. That's why people don't believe in the electoral system. So many of you have seen during 90s, 90s means 1980 to 90 and 90 to 1993, 94. I am talking about that phase in India, in Kashmir. Kashmir was a state at that time. So during general election, during assembly election, you might have seen that very low percentage of electoral participation, very low percentage of probably the opposition's candidate was there to contest. Mostly that time ruling the local parties like either National Conference or maybe the PDPs, they are having almost uncontested win. So what does that mean? Does that mean that there is no opposition there or they are not powerful or something? No, because of the fear. We all know that this is a known fact to all of us. Because of the fear in the valley about the non-state actors, so people do not, if they have the will, but they do not have the courage to come to the polling booth and cast their vote, because they never know while they are casting their vote means they are believing in the Indian electoral system, and they would be marked as a pro-Indian. And you all know during those anarchical days what is the situation in the valley and how our beloved friend on the western border, how they are operating during that time in that valley region. So obviously, believing in Indian electoral system, believing in Indian democratic mechanism was taken as a crime, and that might be lethal. So that's why people were fearful to take a participation during that time. This is known to everybody. Now, question is the situation in Bangladesh like that? I will not comment like that, but I will say that maybe yes, maybe no, because sitting in India, it is very difficult to comment. But yes, there are some sublime kind of a feeling maybe in the third and second category. First category is not that Awami League, after continuously serving 2 full terms, in the very third term, there is no opposition or anti-incumbency is not filling in the country. It is very difficult to believe, because any democratic system, when you are ruling for substantial time, at least minimum 2 terms, there would be definitely a anti-incumbency factor will comes into play, and which we have seen in Indian election as well. Now, if that is so, then the question may come up in our mind that what are the indicators? How you can say that so definitely? The first indicator was that US Ambassador Peter Haas. Peter Haas do not have a very good relation with the ruling party in Bangladesh. And Peter Haas, probably he is a diplomat, but probably he was not been able to maintain the diplomatic relationship with Sheikh Hasina. And that's why the indicator was that Peter Haas continuously giving some comments and some posts in Twitter. And if you can see now those posts, then you will very well can frame that how the things was cropped up during that time already, because those signals are coming in. The second thing is, I don't know how many of you have noticed, one US representative who was purely due to the related to the United Nations rehabilitation programs of the Rohingyas, because you all know that Bangladesh have a Rohingya refugee problem. So Mr. Jeffrey, who is from US, who was actually looking into the Rohingya rehabilitation on behalf of United Nations, and who was closely working in the Myanmar as well as this zone, the Bangladesh, Myanmar, this zone from UN. And he had a scheduled visit. But when he had a scheduled visit, that was supposed to be on 5th of May to 10th of May, the 5 days visit. During that time, US has actually published a travel advisory for the US citizens in Bangladesh. That gives another indication that probably the situation on the ground might not be that great. Now, if you see that 5th of May, 10th of May, what we are doing, we are very much busy with our national election, right? The general election. So government of India, the major forces, those are all busy with the general election. Intelligence also to some extent busy in managing the disturbances on the western and northeastern border or northwestern border of India caused by our big neighbor as and beloved neighbor. So intelligence was busy in that, probably this advisory being overlooked. Third indicator was that election was coming on January 2024. Did any one of you have noticed something which is very odd just before the election? People might not draw a line there, but I would like to mention here that in November, India played 50 over World Cup final with Australia. And when India was not able to beat Australia and lost the final, the reaction that you have seen in the social media. And most of this reaction actually brought the entire Bangladeshi population into limelight, and they are most vocal. Even I have seen that Pakistan people, they are happy, but they were not so vocal. So that already gives some indication that anti-incumbency is very much there. And it is just 2 months before the Bangladesh election. It is in November. Bangladesh election is in January. So in November, if the situation is like that, and people are giving the justification that India doing all the misdeeds in our country, and they are using the current government as a puppet. So that kinds of feeds are coming in the social media. So obviously, people already started thinking something else that people should read. So those things are there. Now, things aggravated when the election, US asked Army League management or Army League leadership that why not you should form an interim government and go for the election just like in Pakistan. Because Pakistan, whenever there is an election, the ruling party resigns, there would be an interim government formed. That interim caretaker government is actually performing the election to ensure the, I would say, the legitimacy of the entire system, unbiased approach, kind of on paper, though you can argue with me, but that is the system. But in Bangladesh, US also proposed this to Sheikh Hasina, that why you are not form an interim government and you conduct the election, let everybody participate in that interim government, whosoever the parties are, and after the election, whatever would be the result, that would be the fate for Bangladesh. But Sheikh Hasina was not agreed into that. Now, you can remember during those time, I am talking about around September, October, India, US force are actually going through a warlike exercise in the Indo-Tibetan border. That exercise was primarily focusing to give a China's statement. But during that exercise, US realized that if they want to counter China, US is very smart in their foreign policy. So they never put all their eggs in a single basket. For now, you all know that US is depending on India for countering China. But US also knows that we are very much dependent on India to counter China. So they always wanted to have a diversification here. So that diversification, how they have thought of? So they proposed India that if they can get a military base, maybe smaller, near the Sikkim border, India obviously denied. Then they want to have something near Burma border. That is also not getting figured out because Burma, you never know whom you should talk to because who is the government, who is the power, and who have it is bifurcated. Arakan army have some control in some areas. The junta military have some control in some areas. So it is difficult, and that's why that negotiation never happened. So they approached to Bangladesh, and that approach has taken place during end of November and December. But Sheikh Hasina also straight away said no. US have not asked for any land military base. They asked for a sea-based military base. So there, if you see the Bangladesh map, so on the part that is connected with Burma, there are many small islands in Bay of Bengal. So US just asked one of the islands to be given to them so that they can create a naval base over there so that they would be very close to China and they can keep and watch on that. And also they want to control India to some extent because they have already burnt their fingers in Afghanistan using Pakistan. So they wanted to use that experience here that I should not
if you wanted
rely
to see the
entirely.
draw anything on the map, I have already provided for you.
So yeah, I am talking about this part. So there you can see there are many small islands. So US just asked for any of these islands can be given to them so that they can set up a naval base here. But that also not happened. And then Peter Haas left Bangladesh in the first week of May when Jeffrey was supposed to come to Bangladesh in this zone, Cox's Bazar zone. This is the Cox's Bazar. Here, there is a Rohingya refugee camp. So Jeffrey was supposed to visit here. So that also US published an advisory. That visit also got cancelled. Peter Haas silently left Bangladesh. So US embassy without any ambassador from May 1st week. And after that, all these things erupted. So many can conclude this in a way that who has done this? Is it US who has conducted this? Yeah, so US is a player here, ISI is a player here, whether China is a player here. So that is very complex because it is very difficult to understand that who was the major player. But one thing is clear that except India, everybody want to remove the existing government in Bangladesh. Now, I was hearing some of the podcast in the recent past when the students are actually protesting against the quota system. I'm talking about June end and July first week. During that time, many of the intellectuals of Bangladesh, they're attending those podcasts, they're attending those discussions, and their concern was that why there is no discussion, why there is so things are so secretive, so hush up things. Why this is like that? Why there is no publication or something? Bangladesh, you remember, is not a military ruled country. In Pakistan, people knows if something happens at the government level, he will not be able to know anything about that. But Bangladesh is not habituated with that. So there are a lot of doubts in their mind. So that also creates a lot of suspicions. The second thing is that since Awami League was in supreme power, the BNP, their key opponent, they were beaten heavily by the Awami League over a period of time. So obviously they do not have that similar level of confidence and also the operative mechanism. So they need some support from outside. And I think the support, obviously, in the form of money that has come. So that triggered it. But who has given the money? It is very difficult to comment right now because these are all intelligence information, not so public. But there are a lot of speculation in the market. So US do have an interest. Answer is yes, they have, because they wanted to have a base, military base, and they wanted to also want to observe Bangladesh to some extent closely. The second thing is, do ISI has a motive? Means Pakistan has a motive? Answer is yes, very much, because remember, Bangladesh is actually East Pakistan. So Pakistan always believes that if not connected by the land border, but at least we can connect by the ideology and by the operative mechanism. So they have a classic example like the Sharia law. That Sharia law is there in Afghanistan, right? And Pakistan likes that Afghanistan should be like that. Similarly, in Bangladesh, because you all know that recently Bangladesh has made tremendous economic progress, and they become one of the leading developing nation in the world. And their foreign exchange reserves is far better than even Pakistan. It was around 54 trillion billion dollar
Yes.
billion dollar sort of, yeah.
Mm.
They have some IMF plan going on, but that is not critical like Pakistan and Sri Lanka. And people are very much aware that they should avoid the situation like Sri Lanka, what has happened there. So things are in control. Per capita income of Bangladesh was even better than India. So
Even
that was the situation,
happiness index is there better than India.
better than India. Moreover, textile, they are world number 3. Textile production, export, and recycling. They are world number 3. Okay. So that was the situation in Bangladesh. Even the World Cup, FIFA World Cup, the garments, those are used in the World Cup in Qatar. A majority of the consignment has gone from Bangladesh. So our shoes, the top quality shoes, Nike, Reebok, those we purchase, they are actually being manufactured and assembled in Bangladesh. So this kind of apparels industry in Bangladesh has developed tremendously. And the way the work culture, the way of work contracts they are maintaining, that is fabulous. It is not oppressive like China, but it is a quasi, I would say, cooperative kind of a approach, and majority of the women force are actually in employment in Bangladesh, which is remarkably a case study for learning for the developing countries like ours as well. So Bangladesh is sitting on this. People have the money, people have the food. So people, common people are more or less comfortable with that. But there are multiple operatives who need power. So they are actually looking for something to happen. And then this quota system announcement has happened, but quota system announcement was not the key. If you remember that quota system announcement was announced by the High Court, government do not have any role into that. High Court announced this quota. Then the protest starts from the student community. Then the matter goes to Supreme Court. Then Supreme Court give a stay order in the implementation of the quota system. But by that time, the power mongers who are there sitting in Bangladesh, they already have seen that yes, एकदम सोले वाला वो डायलॉग है, लोहा गर्म है, हाथोड़ा मारने का टाइम आ गया. The same thing has happened here. Money supply already there in pockets. They already connected to their lords that boss, it is the time you start pump money. And now the informations are coming in that whatever the mob lynching is happening, those are purely funded by huge amount of money. And that is how it is. India में जो पत्थरबाजी होते हैं, वो भी पैसा देके किया जाता है. Same here as well. That is happening. Now, China's involvement, you cannot kick them out because you have seen that in the recent time, Hasina has made two key foreign trips. One is in India. Tista announcement and all this stuff has been there in the agenda, and you have seen that coverage. Another one is China, but China trip was for 4 days, and Hasina went China with a thought in mind that she might get a $5 billion assistance from China in the form of loan. But unfortunately, that $5 billion discussion doesn't figured out, and China probably already got the feed from maybe ISI or something. China actually asked Hasina to be happy with $100 million. And $100 million for a country like Bangladesh is nothing. So she came back early, just stopping the trip prematurely, and then she came back. That also created a lot of doubts, lot of speculation in the minds of the people, but that has happened. And after that, this
So my next question is very, very important now. What is the major concern for Indian security and the challenges for Indian stability, particularly eastern and northeastern part of India? So this, I think, if you look at the entire border, is now is a big, big headache. Now the Bangladesh and Myanmar is also not in favor in Indian favorite neighbor, and not right now. This is also political instability. Now with the Bangladesh, I think huge major resources will going to go in this part of country. And what is your take on this one?
I would like to ask a simple questions to all of you.
Hmm.
With which country India has the largest land border? Can you please type in the chat? So there is the problem. Because for Pakistan, the benefit here is there is a geographical barrier.
Hmm.
But with Bangladesh, we do not have any barrier. Number one. Number two, that why India always have an interest in Bangladesh, because this is the most vulnerable zone of entire country. This is the zone. Chicken neck and sea border here. This is the most vulnerable zone in our country, because this place, if you see this box here, this place is very close to 3 to 4 different foreign countries. Nepal, very close. Bangladesh, Nepal is 1, Bangladesh is 2, Bhutan is 3, Burma is 4, and China is 5. This is the block. 5 different countries have a very close presence in this zone. And that's why India's nerve is here. Kashmir, we try to protect, but it is not the nerve. Nerve is here. This is the
Like
most
I will,
fertile zone in
yes.
India. most populated zone in India, and this is the nerve of India geopolitically. Yes, I got
In fact, we will be very, very lucky to have saved Mizoram, Manipur in next 10 to 20 years. We will be very, very lucky if all the geopolitics are there. If Bangladesh is gone out of our hand, we'll be lucky enough, or it will be enough to save our nation, because Northeast is very, very volatile with this situation right now.
Now, the
Bangladesh.
recent panic that has created in the mind of Pakistan, or maybe ISI, because Hasina has agreed. Saikat, can you zoom a bit? Hasina has agreed to give India a corridor to connect Tripura from Kolkata. This corridor has been agreed. This is the corridor. This corridor has been agreed. So it will pass through Khulna and to Tripura, one, and another one is like this. So these two corridor, Hasina has agreed India to provide. And you have seen in the recent time, Adani has also got a right to operate in Cox's Bazar. Near Cox's Bazar, there is a port called Mangla Port. So Mangla Port operating rights for 30 years has been given to Indian company. Petronet LNG do have some license to work here in Cox's Bazar zone. ONGC is working in this zone for natural gas. So these are the belt which is very much reach for natural gas. US is also interested here to oversee that as well. Okay, US kabhi koi project nahi bana tha, but they wanted to oversight. So that's why this zone is very, very important. And you have seen that any economic developmental activities in Bangladesh, which is happening in last 10 years, all are in this zone. कुछ भी हो रहा है इधर ही हो रहा है. And that's why Bangladesh was very much worried about the instability in Myanmar. And that they have expressed in multiple international forums. So, अब situation ऐसा है that if that corridor works, then India will straight away reduce its dependency on chicken neck. China will not allow to have that. China will never allow to have that India get an alternative route to bypass the chicken neck, because China knows that is the north. This zone is the north of India. Similarly, when Hasina agreed, and if this corridor has happened, and if there is a 50 to 100 years agreement on that, then literally India can connect both of its part through Bangladesh. Now, I can ask a simple question to all of you. You know, when India got independence, so you just zoom out a bit. When India got independence, Shama Prasad Mukherjee comes into picture and got some sort of a coverage and awareness and to some extent relevancy because of what? Can anybody type in the chat? It is not that he said that Jammu and Kashmir should not have a separate constitution and national and flag and separate arrangement in terms of penal code. It is not for that. Even before that, he was one of the person being shot for, being discussed a lot. Do you know why that is? Why that is? क्यों हुआ था? Any idea?
How many of you know some of the person? No, I guess.
Kaushik Shah, I think he knows. Nobody knows Sama Prasad Mukherjee. जनसंघ जानता है ना जनसंघ?
Yes.
अरे बीजेपी came from जनसंघ. Yes, Imran, thank you. So when Pakistan and Bangladesh formed, not Bangladesh, that time it is West Pakistan and this was East Pakistan. How to control these two countries by a single leader when there is only the sea border connects? Think about it. Only sea border connects. There is no common land border. How is it possible to control? Why Pakistan lost the 1971 battle? Because Indian Navy blocked the Karachi port. कराची पोर्ट में ब्लॉक ना करके इंडिया सिर्फ लैंड बॉर्डर पे फाइट करता तो कभी पाकिस्तान को हरा नहीं पाता. Since they blocked the Karachi port, the supply line to Bangladesh got cut off. And that's why, that is the reason for Pakistan defeat. Otherwise, it was not possible. Land border पे हो ही नहीं सकता था. Actually, Jinnah proposed there should be a buffer zone from Rajasthan over UP, over Bihar and Bengal to Bangladesh. So their plan was that this part would be India, this part would be India, but this corridor would be the buffer zone. No man's land. So Pakistanis can use this, Indians also can use this, but there would be no country's rule.
We become business project.
How many of you are aware about this?
GT road नहीं है.
GT road नहीं. So that was the plan. And unfortunately, Indian government rulers are agreeing to this plan. They said, no problem, you can have that.
All Gandhians.
Gandhians, yes. Sama Prasad Mukherjee and few more, I can't remember the names. They said that, what is this? They are in the disguise of connecting these two countries. They are actually want to divide India into two parts. So Pakistan have this plan always. And when this corridor is actually being offered to India, now zoom in, Saikat. Just so when given that corridor to India, you see, it is in a miniature form. India is actually trying to have that here as well. है ना? India तो वही करने जा रहा है. I have two parts. I want to connect them through a corridor. And corridor का मतलब क्या था? Indian army will have always a presence to provide the security to the Indian passing trucks, goods vehicles, transport fleets, everything. So Bangladesh was already agreed when Hasina was here that yes, Indian army can presence there to protect their fleet, which is from Kolkata to Tripura. ISI को अलार्म बेल बज गया, बॉस कुछ तो करना है, नहीं तो बर्बाद हो जाएगा. I hope now everybody understand. Yes, from the security perspective, the major risk here is that India was preparing itself for 2.5 front war. But India is not ready for 3.5 front war. Now Bangladesh issue has pushed India into 3.5 front war.
To understand this one, big challenge. Past neighboring country, West Bengal, Assam, and all the northeast is right now.
Situation in northeast is far dangerous. Here, if there is something happen, you have the back end base of the country here, the core area part of the country. But for these folks, if this got disconnected, think about it. China will first attack here. This will get disconnected from Doklam. then this part would be completely sandwiched. Completely sandwiched. Here Myanmar, there China, here from Bangladesh. Okay. Yes, I can.
Yeah, now, so that's our idea is to get as an investor. So how this political uncertainty in Bangladesh affect our investment confidence, and what are the opportunities for us that we can see. Now the political is there, but obviously with the challenges there will be some kind of opportunity. We'll figure it out as an investor.
Yeah, I will say some, and then you can add as well. So apparently, in a very shorter term, you already have seen that textile industry or the garment industry, apparel industry got some boost. There are multiple publications are coming in from the economic sides and industry side that everybody is telling that India will get 10 to 20% boost in their textile and apparel industry, where India almost lost the plot to Bangladesh. India was number 5 in the world. Now, because of this, India have a tremendous potential to be number 2. So that would be the shorter term. But from the longer term, these always create a fear at your back end always. That is what US was also wanted to. Europe was also wanted to, because during Ukraine-Russia crisis, Jaishankar said that when there is a Asian crisis, Europe doesn't pay any heed there. But when there is a Europe crisis, Europe thinks that this is a world crisis. याद है ना वो
the famous
mega famous quote that he said that US always, Europe always thinks that their problem is global problem, and if some problem happens in some parts of in the Asia, they think that is a localized problem. So that Western media never forgets anything, and they do a lot of analysis to that. They are finding out that where from India is getting so much confidence, because they thought that India to some extent figure out by Article 370 that Kashmir will plot, and they are focusing purely on POK. With China, they have already shown their guts, and because China is not the China that it was in 2010, 2012 sort of, and because of the Taiwan agenda, so China is purely focused on the Pacific, not on the only Indian border. If the Indian border was the only focus, then US will not bother about India. But since China is not focusing purely on Indian border, and India has the capability to restrict them, then US
already
was,
they have already had a
US and
planning.
Europe was thinking that what is the north, when they know that this is the north, but there is something. So that's why the Bangladesh, because Myanmar, had it been the junta government, probably they are not getting bothered that much, because anyways it would be managed. But since Myanmar also destabilized, and Bangladesh is like giving everything to India, whatever they are asking for, so that was the spot they have targeted. But the thing is, when there is always a fear of looming war at your backyard, so obviously your stock market will struggle to flourish. Because if there is no fear, we have seen in the last 1.5 years, the journey started from 49,000. You remember, right? Sensex was at 49,000 when we have started the journey, 2022 November. Then from 49,000, we have reached to 81,000. So that journey was possible just because there was no fear of looming war on our own backyard. Now that is there. So market would be volatile, definitely. Government will definitely put a lot of effort. But my suggestion is that be careful, think about the industry as a whole, where we have a presence, where we have the proficiency. Obviously, those industries to some extent will survive, but the industries we are looking at to develop, to create more and more capabilities, so that might get a bit of a hiccups or bit of a halt over here, because investors cannot have the fearless investment mindset now in India. So That is the plot
So
that is right
volatility
now.
will be the right now. It will going
Key.
forward. Volatility
There is
will
a
be
lot
there.
of volatilities. Yes.
So this is one of the thing, and some of the sector like CPR industry, particularly on the defense front, it will be much concerned because of Bay of Bengal. Now we need to monitor this one. So this will be the biggest challenge over there. And defense industry, particularly armed forces. So inter border area
Yeah,
is
defense expenditure will rise
going to
because
rise.
India always will be disturbed, right? So back in the mind, there would be and you always remember that if the expenditure goes more in defense, your
Mm,
welfare, growth, and
mm,
economic spending, those are required to increase the cash flow or the fund flow in the hands of the common people. That definitely will come down. So the idea of $5 trillion economy, obviously that dream has got a hit.
mm,
Similarly, the $10 trillion, which was very much we are thinking as a possibility by 2030, I am not sure what would be the government planning, and it would be a great taste for Jaisankar that how he will manage the external affair with Bangladesh. And using this, the Jaisankar was completely focusing on West. Now, West has actually tried to bind him in South Asia only.
mm,
So that is another. And the third one is that defense companies will get some boost, will get some new orders or something, maybe from the government, maybe from the Myanmar. Also, India can look for the new market. Overall, global arms race again will start to a large extent. So Indian companies will try to also participate and try to get some bites over there as well. So that is the to some extent that side, but that also create some problem in our own earning capability, not as an investor, but in general, the business and economic growth, unemployment will get a hit. So there would be a lot of correlated impacts. Maybe I am talking about the worst case scenario, but one thing for sure, this Muhammad Yusuf, who is now the interim government chief, he is basically a puppet of US. So how long he will be there, and then there would be an election. By that election, what will happen? We don't know. But there would be a lot of disturbances in the Bangladesh, that it for sure. Government of India will love to have the disturbances in Bangladesh in the near term. But in the longer term, the revival of the Awami League is the key for India. And there are some experts, they are telling that there might be a small Galvan-like war or small scale fight, maybe Galwan like, may happen with Bangladesh Rifle in the near term
mm.
because of the refugee problems and all this stuff. So that is my take. Uh, my suggestion to the investor is that understand this geopolitics, keep a close eye. Don't be very pessimistic. Simultaneously, don't be very optimistic as well. Keep yourself liquidated. Wait for the further correction. Get some good stock at the discounted price and keep a long term view. Short term will be volatility, and you always know in the volatile market, it is always FIIs and DIIs wins, retail investor lose.
Okay,
So keep a
so
longer term view